On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, it was hot over the weekend, but not hotter than the Texans training camp. Cody and I discussed why between Matt Burke and Bobby Slowik, they will get all hands on deck and everybody will eat on both sides of the ball.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, to this Monday episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If this is your first time watching or listening to the Locked On Texans podcast, just do us three favors. Subscribe, like, and comment to the podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Shout out to all of our everydayers from the Himalayas returning back to listen to Cody and myself continue to talk Texans. If you don't know who we are, I'm your Texans football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texans credential media member, sports. I could say media member for myself now, but
yeah, you might as well. You might as well. You're gonna be there a lot more now, so I'm just saying.
But Texans credential media member, Sports Illustrated's own Cody Davis. Guys, today's episode, before we talk Texans, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Cody, they ain't here for all of that. They want to talk Texans. They want to hear Texans. Take us away.
And we will, on this Monday installment of Locked On Texans, recap the weekend of training camp. Friday wasn't really nothing going on. It was kind of slow, but Lord have mercy on Saturday the hot. Houston Texans picked up it was hot outside.
It was hot outside, but
that sun was beaming on us finally. But when you talk about how hot it was during training camp on Saturday, man, there was a lot going on both sides of the ball. So, you know, the Texans have had 3 days of training camp as of right now. We'll be back out there later on today. But through the first 3 days of training camp, John and myself has noticed an underrated camp battle so far. So we're going to close out that installment of Locked On Texans with that. But when you look at Saturday, man, both sides of the ball got the best of each other. The offensive side looked really good during the first half of team scrimmage. However, they closed Saturday's camp battle with the defense just going ballistic. And to understand how good the defense looked, CJ Stroud on several occasions looked very frustrated. Then there was a moment between him and Gerard Johnson. It wasn't nothing bad, but you could tell Gerard Johnson was talking to him, and it was kind of hard to read lips, but you could tell Gerard Johnson was like coaching him up and pointing to different things too, because that third drive that they had was terrible on all three levels of the offense. But the defense, John, looked really, really good. One guy that stood out, of course, look, we talk a lot about CJ Stroud here on this show, and rightfully so. However, on the defensive side of the ball, they got a guy by the name of Will Anderson Jr., who is just as important. And Will Anderson Jr. had himself a day. Look, the first 2 days of training camp practices. No pads. But I would say Titus Howard did look good during the first 2 days. However, Will Anderson Jr. did give Titus Howard some work. Look, if this was a game, we'll be sitting here talking about Will Anderson Jr. having somewhere in the ballpark to 2 to 3 sacks. My favorite moment of Anderson came when the Houston Texans tried to get a little tricky with the defense using Stephon Diggs in a jet sweep, and Will Anderson Jr. blew that up so fast to the point everybody was in awe. Eric Murray had an opportunity to record an interception on CJ Stroud. His target was Nico Collins. And I'm not sure, John, if CJ walked away with 2 interceptions or did Davis Mills account for the other interception, because during the final defensive drive before they closed practice, there was another interception, but where I was standing, it was kind of hard to see which quarterback was out there on the field. But just so you guys know, the defense did in the third day of training camp with 2 interceptions. And to be honest with you, everybody on all 3 levels was making plays on the ball, which brings us to our first topic, man. Matt Burke and Coach D'Amico Ryans, they are definitely utilizing the strengths on everybody on all 3 levels to find out not only who's going to be starting come week 1 of the regular season, but what this rotation is going to be like. Because the one thing I love about the Houston Texans as of right now, and I know I said this before, but the main thing that I love about them, especially looking at them during the first 3 days of training camp, is the fact that this is a deep team.
Yeah, it's again, I wouldn't limit it to that position. So all positions, we just talked about D tackle, same thing. Like, sometimes and that's what we say. Like, we don't have a depth chart right now. Like, a lot of times the groups that we're rolling out are specific. Like, we know some of the plays we want. Hey, I want this guy to get this rep, and see how he responds to that. So sometimes we're just really trying to put each guy in a position and see how they respond in that. Maybe it's that play or with that group or with that call. So, that's what this part of the time of the year is for. Preseason games will be big. There'll be a lot of guys rolling through stuff, and I think we're just going to give everybody an opportunity to show us what they can do. And end of the day, like, we all want to win ball games, and so I don't care how you got here. I don't care what your draft status was. I don't care how old you are, how young you are. If you're the best player to help us win ball games, you're going to be on the field for us. So we're just going to find out who those guys are.
Guys, the theme from both coordinators, and you will hear this from Bobby Slowik, is if you can help us win ball games, you'll be out there on the field. And when I heard from that response from Matt Burke, to me, because the question marks for the secondary are there. Now, that's one of my takeaways from the first couple of days. I thought that Jeff Okudah played better. I thought that there was an up and down 2-day period for rookie Kamari Lassiter. I even thought Derek Stingley, had some opportunities out there on the field that was just left on the field. But there are a concern not only between the Locked On Texans duo here, but I think for the media of that secondary, and for Matt Burke just highlighting that it's not just going to be up to the secondary. I think this team is going to really prioritize causing pressure up front, number one. That was one of the biggest takeaways defensively when you look at Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. But aside from those two, Danico Autry, we know that Derek Stingley is going to be the starter at corner, right? We know about the linebacker group. Christian Harris did not participate in practice those 2 days for training camp. He'll be back whenever he's ready. Aziz looked good. But I think that overall, the feel that I'm getting is it's going to be all hands on deck. And we'll get into that on the offensive side of the ball. But for Matt Burke, I believe that they have, and as you heard him say it, they have maybe formations, maybe situational players that they believe in this situation, he does something better than the other guy. Could be a guy that they initially put out there to start. Could be a guy that's a rotational player, right? A depth piece player. And this team is full of depth at almost every position, which is why I think this is a difficult year for them, because they're going to have to let go of some guys. They're going to have to regulate guys to the practice squad. They're going to have to say, hey, listen, man, we love what you're doing, but we want you to come back, but just not as a starter, because there's players all over this team right now that can start. But for Matt Burke and optimizing the strength of the secondary, it sounds like Eric Murray had an interception on the day, right? It sounds like they're going to do a very good job of just rotating guys in and out. And I think that will play to the strengths of this team for the first 10 or so weeks. By the end of the year, you want to see them have guys that they know that they're going to start. But it isn't about who's starting, who's not starting right now for Houston. And that was probably the overall takeaway from Matt Burke. It's all about seeing who's going to make this roster and which of these guys we believe and trust to do the things that we're asking of them. That said, everybody's not going to be asked the same responsibility. But when we ask you to do something, can you do it? And can you do it at a high level? Like I said, Jeff Okudah, I thought at least on the first day. Actually, both days I thought that he played better than what was being reported from Cody here. Throughout OTA. No. But I wasn't out there.
Yeah. But what I would say, he
OTA.
was. Yeah, and I would say that he did look better the last 2 days of training camp. Just the way you put it, I was like, "Hey, just shot at me."
It was a better day 2, or technically day 3 for Kamari Lassiter, so a better Saturday than Friday. Nico Collins was taking him to school Friday, guys, and it was a pretty sight for Nico fans. It was not a pretty sight for guys that are concerned about who's going to be cornerback 2. And Miles Bryant has been fielding punts. Now, we also know that there's a battle going on, I think, between Miles Bryant and Desmond King. Desmond King has also played some return game for Houston. So just to keep that in mind. The defense, as Cody put it, had a great day to end it off. I'm still curious on when they put the pads on, how much of that D-line will impact all 3 levels of this team.
And the pads will come on Tuesday, according to Coach D'Amico Ryans.
It's that time of the year.
Yes, sir. It's that time of the year, and I cannot wait.
With the pads coming on.
Exactly. I cannot wait to see what this offense definitely look like when they put the pads on, because the one thing that I've been very impressed by going all the way back doing mandatory minicamp is how well this offensive line look. However, when you talk about the offensive line, when you talk about this offense, it all comes down to what Bobby Slowik is going to do with all of the weapons that he has to utilize on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break.
We all love sports here. We love the Rockets. We love the Astros. And you guys specifically love the Houston Texans. The NFL season is almost here. However, we are in a little, kind of a weird spot with the professional sports. College is also coming up. The sports are not necessarily sporting like we all want them to, but don't worry. FanDuel lets us keep sports going all summer whenever we want. All we have to do is open the app, dream up big bets. I'm dreaming up big bets whenever I'm in the mood, and you're in the mood as well. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL.
The players that made strides through these first 3 days, have you seen the difference of what has been different about John Metchie so far?
Yeah, I mean, he's in much better football shape, right? And that's to be expected. What he went through, I mean, that was, 2 years? He couldn't do a football workout, and then he all of a sudden rolls onto the field last year and he just has to go roll. Like that's really, really difficult. I think it's a credit to him as a person that he was able to do even what he did last year. And then now he was able to have an off season, spring, a summer, a fall to really kind of get back into football shape, be where he wants to be physically. And then obviously second year in the system for everybody mentally has really slowed everyone down, calmed everyone down in that regard. So he's able to just go play football. And that's when John Metchie's at his best, is when he can just go play football, do what he loves, and he doesn't have to worry about all the stuff he's been worrying about for 2-3 years now. It's been really fun to watch.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Monday installment of Locked On Texans. Everything that the coaching staff has said, players have said over the first 3 days of training camp, you guys should already know that was my favorite moment, because look, I understand why there were some concerns about John Metchie, but John, what have I been saying over the last 12 months, dating back to last year's
18 months, honestly.
18 months, because once we find out that he was clear, he was healthy, I kept saying,
give him time.
2023, give him time to get his legs under him, let him get back to football shape, football mindset, and everything else in between. And this young man will get back to the player that we all love during his final year at Alabama. And now here we are 3 days into training camp, and John Metchie has been one of the top guys showing out in training camp. And on Saturday, This young man put on a show. I believe if this was a game, we'd be sitting here talking about John Mechie having a career high of like 100 receiving yards with like 3 or 4 catches or whatever the case might be. That young man put on the show, but it also showcased the amount of weapons that CJ Stroud and Bobby Slowik has to utilize on the offensive side of the ball, because in addition to John Mechie, other guys stepped up and looked good. Robert Woods, Noah Brown, Darwell Gumbawale, Damian Pierce. Joe Mixon had the day off on Saturday, and I tell you, Damian Pierce is slowly but surely getting back to the player that we love during the 2022 campaign. Xavier Hutchinson, Dalton Schultz, all of these guys stepped up and looked really well for this offense. But John, the best part about all of that, look at all the names that I just said of the guys that looked really good.
Guys you didn't mention.
I didn't even get an opportunity to mention Tank Dell, who, even though I think he might have ended Saturday's practice with, I think, 1 reception, he was still getting open. You already know what Nico Collins is going to do because he's a 6'4" receiver. But the best part about this offense, in addition to John Mechie putting on the show, is the fact that CJ Stroud and Stephon Diggs connected not once, not 2, but 3 times and looked damn good. John, I think there's a lot at stake for Bobby Slowik in year 2, but at the same time, I think it's all going to come down to the camaraderie and how all of these players on the offensive side of the ball find their niche in what is going to be a very crowded offense.
Yeah, it will be, man. And before I even talk about the offense, what I do love about this unit right now is everybody's literally on the same page. You talk about Stephon Diggs and CJ on the same page. CJ hit up with him a laser in the middle of the field. He cut on a dime. And I mean, cut on a dime. Actually, it was right outside the hash marks. Cut on a dime to beat Stingley, and that was a TD. They got these handshakes, and CJ is remembering all of the handshakes and separate handshakes.
So many handshakes.
It's a lot of handshakes, but they are all on the same page, same paragraph, same sentence right now in terms of the quarterback wide receiver unit. What I like about this team, man, Joe Mixon will allow this offense to go chasing waterfalls. And they don't have to listen to the rivers and the lakes like they used to because of the similarities that I think Joe Mixon helps bring to this offense. And I'm going to break it down. Did you guys know 2021, the Cincinnati Bengals were 8th overall on offense, 6th in 2022. Those were the first 2 healthy years of Joe Burrow. The similarities for Joe Mixon here in Houston and his time in Cincinnati, Brian Callahan, Shanahan Tree, Bobby Slowik, Shanahan Tree, Joe Mixon in 2021, the year that they went to the Super Bowl, which is something that we all have as a somewhat of an expectation for this team. 1,200 yards, 42 catches. Joe Mixon, who also highlighted Laremy Tunsil as the biggest thing that stands out in comparison to his time in Cincinnati with that offensive line to here in Houston. And Friday, I had an opportunity to ask Joe Mixon this question.
So not to get too much into comparison, but what are the differences that you see between the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line compared to Houston? And how do you think that it helped you thrive here in Houston?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I had a really great guys in Cincinnati my whole 7-year tenure that I did there. But, I mean, the biggest thing that pretty much stands out to me more than anything is we got all-pro linemen here, obviously, like LT, Pro Bowl guy, and he's been all-pro before. I definitely feel like with the way that these guys work, the way that they attack their job, I definitely feel like it'll benefit me in a greater scale. I think that Slowik, the way that he's dialing things up, I truly feel like, you know, he's going to do whatever he can to get all his playmakers the ball. I mean, I've been in a situation before where a lot of people have to get the ball as well, and, you know, sometimes some people, it don't go their way that day, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I feel like we got a lot of unselfish guys, a lot of great character guys, and I think that they do a hell of a job, you know, attacking the day and wanting to be better. everybody that's here, we all want the same goal, man, same dream, and it starts with the foundation. So we just got to keep it pushing.
And what stood out to me from that, guys, was just Joe Mixon mentioning how he's come from an offense where a lot of people was going to get the ball. He also continued with, I think, the way that Slowik is dialing things up. I truly feel like he's going to do everything he can to get all the playmakers involved. And also D'Amico Ryans, when I had an opportunity to ask him what is his expectations and what is he looking for from the tight end unit this year, I'm looking for more explosive plays from the tight end group. So the outlook for Bobby Slowik for me in year 2, I think he's challenged with getting his team, number one, like if he has a white big board, top 5 offense, but he's definitely challenged with getting the ball in several players' hands. And they have the playmakers. They have the playmakers outside with Nico and Stephon and Tank Dell. I think they'll have the playmakers on the inside with John Mechie and the tight end group. And I do believe that this group, the tight end group, is an underrated part of this offense because everybody, a lot of the opposing defenses will be focused on the wide receiver group, and the running backs. But you have a Dalton Schultz returning back who was very, I would say, lethal when he had the opportunities to put up those big numbers in Houston last year. Whenever he had those 8 targets, 9 target games, he was pretty good for Houston. And when I look at Brevin Jordan, got a lot of praise from D'Amico Ryans. I look at Brevin Jordan as an underrated piece to that tight end group. I really do. One of the things that I saw and stood out for me the first 2 days, Friday and Saturday, well, 3 days, but the Friday and Saturday we were out there, was just how much he can probably hurt defenses as a mesh runner. And I look at Cade Stover, and I see Cade Stover as a guy that he's a big human. That's a big dude, man. He's a big kid. But how much he can be utilized in a quick game. One-step drop, stick route, right? So the tight end group, I think they have 3 tight ends that can hurt teams in different ways. I can see Dalton Schultz hurting teams in the seam. I can see Brevin Jordan hurting teams when they want a bootleg and just getting him out in space and he's just crossing. I can see Cade Stover hurting teams when it's 3rd and 3 and we need to get the ball out quickly. That's what I'm getting from the tight end group. With the running back group, as Cody highlighted, Dameon Pierce, I think, and this was a duo that was hard on them last year, but so far during camp, he has looked pretty good, guys. And you guys have killed us and called us Dameon Pierce haters. That was never the case. We were just reporting on what we saw, and a year later, we're doing the same thing. This time, the outcome and outlook is different. He's looking much better. Saturday, he was the lead back for Houston, and he looked pretty good for Houston in his opportunities. He had 2 big plays between Friday and Saturday. And then again, highlighting John Mechie, post route that would have went to the crib, and he would have finally been able to do the celebration. This unit under Bobby Slowik, with the similarities between Brian Callahan and what they had to do in 2021 with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, and C.J. Ozuma, that was a unit, and I didn't even mention some of the backup guys like Samaje Perine. That was a unit that they had to find a way to piece it all together because you got stars in every group, and they were able to do that. Shanahan tree connection, I think that's a strong possibility for the Houston Texans this year. And again, that year, they were 8th overall on the offense, in the NFL. And they kind of got started late that year. They got hot late that year with that offense.
Yeah.
The following year, 6th overall. And when I look at the parallels between the two, I see a year 2 fully healthy CJ. They were in the year 2 fully healthy Joe Burrow. They were 6th that year. And I think Houston could be a little bit better because they have the offensive line to propel them. And again, shout out to Joe Mixon highlighting Laremy Tunsil. I do think that's a big thing for Joe Mixon this year, just playing behind a better O-line. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has all the tools you need to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn Jobs isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who are not actively looking for a new job, but may be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users doesn't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. I know that was a mouthful. When we talked about Bobby Slowik's outlook entering year 2 in 2021, that was year 3 for Brian Callahan. But some of the camp battles that may fly under people's radar this year is very interesting, Cody. I know you want to highlight the running back, so I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away.
Yeah, look, the two guys that have really caught my attention during these first 3 days have been British Brooks and Gerard Jordan. And both of those guys have given the Houston Texans something, both in the passing and the rushing attack. There's been moments where both of those guys have also, kind of helped out the offensive line when they block his skills as well. And I don't want to put it like this because no disrespect to neither one of those guys, but in addition to Brooks, in addition to Jordan, Darrell Gumbawale is showcasing what he can do.
JJ Taylor.
JJ Taylor. And when I take a look at British Brooks, when I take a look at Gerard Jordan, either JJ Taylor, I'm looking at it from a standpoint, which one of these guys are battling to be part of the practice squad roster and which one is not going to make this team as a whole, rather 53-man roster or practice squad roster as well. However, I would say the one thing about training camp and the one thing about putting on good film during camp and during preseason game is the fact that you're going to have an opportunity to build up your resume for another team, which can work out in their favor. But that is an underrated camp battle through these first 3 days because all of these guys in that running back unit has looked phenomenal.
Yeah, and the Houston Texans, and we saw this Saturday, we were wondering who was that working out, but the Houston Texans worked out veteran running back Cam Akers. Cam Akers had an opportunity to play for the Rams and Vikings last year. Did not have a good year between the two teams. 1.3 yards per carry for the LA Rams, 3.6 yards per carry for the Vikings. In 2020, 4.3 yards per carry, 625 yards on the ground. So I think this is a unit that's going to be looking for the best third available option, maybe fourth available option, maybe bringing in competition for Dameon Pierce. I don't really necessarily think so because he has looked pretty good to my eye. One of the biggest battles, I think, again, is just going to be that second and third quarterback position. And again, and it wasn't just Cody, by the way, but the reports coming out of OTAs was just Jeff Okudah didn't look the greatest. And I had an opportunity on the sidelines Saturday to talk to Miss Kim Davis, Chalk Talk, right? We talked about Jeff Okudah and how she believes D'Amico Ryan is just waiting and looking to see if he's going to give him what this team needs. He has all of the physical traits, man, all of the physical tools, but just making plays. And Saturday he made some plays. So I think between Kamari, who had a better day 3, Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson, Chris Boyd, those guys are going to be really competing with one another to kind of fill out that depth chart at corner. It's going to be interesting because, again, I think what Houston is going to eventually look for is guys that can make a play on the ball. And that's every team, right? So that sounds redundant. But they're going to really rely on that pass rush. The front 7 to cause confusion, to cause disarray for quarterbacks and offensive lines. And when those opportunities are present, physically, can you get to the spot you need to be? Mentally, can you make the play on the ball and not have a mental lapse and create any bad penalties? So that was that's something that I think we got an opportunity to see from Jeff Okudah Saturday, just being the guy physically that this team really needs him to be. Thank you guys for listening and watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Cody will be out there later today. We will be back tomorrow with more Texans talk from training camp. Underrated part of training camp, I didn't catch Friday, Cody, but I caught it Saturday. The amount of motions and shifting on this offense. They're going to try to cause confusion. They're going to put pressure on defenses before the snap, and that's going to allow guys to eat. Because who are you going to cover if you don't know if you don't know your assignment? So, but we'll be back more. I'm John, some sports guy Hickman. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Follow the Locked On Texans page as well at Locked On Texans, and subscribe, like, and comment.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody COTYDAVIS _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.